Your espresso tastes inconsistent. One shot's perfect, the next is sour, and the one after that's bitter. You've blamed the beans, you've blamed the machine, you've probably even blamed yourself. It's the grinder. It's almost always the grinder. Here's the thing, nobody tells you when you buy your first coffee grinder, most of what's sold under that name isn't actually a grinder. It's a chopper. And once you know the difference, you'll never look at a grocery store shelf the same way again. Let's start with the two you should stop buying immediately, because they're not even in the same category as real grinders. Mr. Coffee and Hamilton Beach both sell what they call coffee grinders for $15, $20. Open one up and you'll find a single spinning blade like a tiny blender. That blade doesn't grind, it smashes. Some particles come out as fine as flour, others survive as whole chunks, and you cannot get a consistent extraction from inconsistent particles. For espresso, you need particles in the 200 to 400 micron range. For pour-over, you're targeting 400 to 800 microns. A blade chopper delivers neither. It just delivers chaos. No amount of skill on the machine side fixes what happens before the coffee even touches water. These aren't bad grinders. They're not grinders. Quick thing before we go further, hit like and subscribe now, because if you're not, you're going to miss a lot of videos like this one that could save you real money. Now for the ones that actually hurt more because they look legitimate. Cuisinart's burr grinders are the ones people upgrade to, thinking they've solved the blade problem. And they have, technically. But open the hopper after a session and you'll find a small graveyard of ground stuck in the chute and around the burr. That's called retention, and on the Cuisinart it's bad enough that your first cup of the day is often partly yesterday's stale grounds. You paid to fix inconsistency and got staleness instead. Krups has the same story with a different symptom. Their mid-range burr grinders market themselves with the language of specialty coffee, precision, professional grind settings, but the actual burr sets are the same low-cost stamped steel you'd find in a $20 unit, just wrapped in a body that looks like it costs more. You're paying for the marketing copy, not the burrs. Smeg is the one that stings the most because it's genuinely beautiful. Retro shell, pastel colors, sits perfectly on your counter, and that's exactly the problem. It was designed by people thinking about your kitchen aesthetic first and your extraction second. The grind adjustment has so few real steps between espresso and way too coarse that dialing in anything precise is close to impossible. You're not buying a grinder, you're buying a photograph of one. And KitchenAid, yes, even KitchenAid, the burr grinder attachment for their stand mixer. It sounds efficient, one motor, multiple attachments. But in practice, the motor wasn't built for the torque burr grinding actually needs, so it strains, it's slow, and the grind is noticeably less consistent than a dedicated unit half the price. Brand trust doesn't transfer between categories. A great mixer motor is not a great grinder motor. One more pattern worth calling out here, price alone tells you almost nothing. Some of the priciest grinders on shelves are priced on brand history and packaging, not on what's actually happening at the burr. And the cheapest options on this list, the blade choppers, aren't cheap because they're a bargain. They're cheap because they're built cheap. The real tell is never the price tag. It's what's inside. If a company won't tell you the burr material, whether that's ceramic or hardened steel, won't publish a retention number, or can't explain why their grind range works the way it does, that silence is usually the answer. Marketing fills the space where an engineering answer should be. So what actually separates a good grinder from a bad one? It comes down to three things: burr quality, grind consistency across the full range, and whether the company designed for coffee first or for the shelf display first. Everything else, the color, the branding, The professional sticker is noise. Which brings us to the three that are actually worth every cent. Baratza doesn't try to be beautiful. Their Encore and Virtuoso models are plain plastic boxes that have become the default recommendation in the specialty coffee world. The kind of grinder that serious home baristas and educators keep pointing back to for one reason: consistency you can rely on. Both run conical burrs, specifically the M2 burr set in the Encore and the M3 in the Virtuoso, which is the same burr geometry Baratza has refined over multiple generations. And almost uniquely in this category, every part is replaceable. Burrs wear out on every grinder eventually, and Baratza is one of the only companies that assumes that and designs for it instead of designing for the landfill. Fellows Ode, especially the second generation, was built around a single obsession: even particle size for filter and pour-over coffee specifically. It's a single-dose grinder, meaning you load only what you're about to brew rather than filling a hopper and grinding down over days. And that workflow distinction matters more than it sounds. Single dosing minimizes stale grounds and retention almost entirely. The Ode uses flat burrs, which is a fundamentally different geometry than Baratza's conical approach. Flat burrs tend to produce a narrower particle size distribution, which is part of why the Ode doesn't try to also be an espresso grinder or a spice grinder or anything else. That focus shows up directly in the cup, noticeably fewer of those chalky, over-extracted notes that come from inconsistent grounds. And if you want to go manual, One Espresso makes hand grinders that genuinely compete with electric units 3 times their price. No motor to fail, external adjustment you can actually feel click into place, and burr quality that punches well above what the price tag suggests. It's the closest thing to a cheat code in this whole category. Here's the honest takeaway. The gap between a $15 chopper and a proper grinder isn't really about price. It's about whether the company that made it was solving a coffee problem or a marketing problem. Everything I just walked you through, that's the difference. If you've been blaming your beans or your machine, do yourself one favor before you buy anything else. Check what's actually spinning inside your current grinder. You might already own the problem. That's it for this one. If this saved you from a bad purchase or confirmed one you already made, let me know in the comments which grinder you're using right now. I read all of them.